Talking about sports participation, a big thing that we talk about on the show all the time. One of the goals of the show is increase participation and awareness of sport. We're always sort of, beating the drum for that. So we've got a, really interesting guest this morning who's going to give us an insight into, the value the public in the UK have for athletes in reaching their goals. So we've got Grace Harvey, Team GB Paralympic Swimmer, and Tony Wallace, Regional Director and GL Sport Foundation Lead. Welcome to the show. Great to have you on board.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to sort of speak to you. I think, absolutely, I'm all for sort of athletes getting as much support as possible. I think sport can boost morale in a big way. But if I can start with yourself, sort of, Grace, obviously, you're sort of, a Team GB Paralympic swimmer, and what's your experience been as an athlete? It's always interesting to hear, different people's experiences as an athlete in terms of what support you receive and what it's like to get support.
I would say it's quite hard at times to get support, and for a lot of athletes coming up in the pathway, they struggle to get that financial support. I was always very reliant on mum and dad having to help me out for training costs, especially when I was starting out, and there were lots of comps and competitions that I just couldn't have afforded to have gone to because there wasn't the money resources for it available. I think as well there are really big differences on the elite level as well for those that are able to get sponsorships. Like me, myself personally, I don't have any. So it's always budgeting and making sure that there is financial systems in place to make sure that I'm able to train and actually make sure I'm able to compete at the big competitions in the season.
No, it's really interesting you say, and I mean, if it was down to sort of me, and I don't know the implications of it all, I would want, whatever government it is, no matter what government it is, to have a fund allocated. I don't know what's in place, and I want to pretend to know, but I would make sure there's a fund allocated, no matter who comes in. That's for sort of athletes, a pathway to make sure that, because I think, to be fair to sort of GB, they do quite well. I think they sort of punch above their weight in terms of on a global stage. They sort of win medals and that sort of stuff. But you hear sort of stories like yourself, and I don't think that's great, really. I mean, you want funding to be available at all levels, but I think that it really is important because it does boost morale, but also helping people get their goals. But just bringing you in, Tony, what's your take on it? I mean, I might have missed the mark. I don't understand the funding and the way it works in the UK, to be honest, completely. But what's your take on all of this type of thing? I mean, what can be done better to support the GB athletes?
Yeah, good morning, Jimmy. And you've hit the nail on the head there, really. That funding can be challenging for some of our athletes, and not everybody is on the sporting pathway and can attract the UK sport funding, which has just recently been announced for the LA 2028 Olympic and Paralympic cycle. So that's why 16 years ago we set up the GLL Sport Foundation, which was there to help try and bridge the gap and give some support to young, talented athletes who really were wanting to aspire and reach their sporting ambitions and sporting potential. And it could be the difference between an athlete achieving their goals or having to give up due to financial challenges or access to facilities. So over the last 16 years, the GLL Sport Foundation has distributed over 28,000 athlete awards, which has culminated in over £15 million worth of in-kind and cash awards to many athletes across 117 different sports. So it's not just Olympic and Paralympic sports, it's Commonwealth Games, Deaf Olympics, Special Olympics. So it's a real broad brush. And then over the last couple of years, we've also been developing the athlete wraparound services, because we know that access to training memberships and cash is one thing, or finances is one thing, but also if an athlete's not training or competing, they could be injured. So getting access to physiotherapy is really important. So the foundation has a network of physiotherapy units that athletes can tap into. And also last year we launched a partnership with Switch the Play Foundation, which is wraparound mental health and mental well-being support, because our athletes overwhelmingly were telling us that their mental health is as important as their physical health. So we have a partnership now with Switch the Play, which offers support and resources to athletes to help with their mental health and mental well-being.
No, that sounds really, really good, Tony. I think that's brilliant. Then I think that having that accessibility like you said, be it physio, be it mental health, having that accessibility for athletes can only be a good thing. I mean, sort of going off piste a little bit, I sort of come back to what you're mentioning there, and my understanding is the way things work at times in the UK is that certain sports may get funding withdrawn based on their performance, and in a way it kind of makes sense to a certain degree, but in a way it's kind of like, well, it's a strange way of working, really. Let's say, for example, because underperforming could be to a number of different variables. So I don't want to profess to know exactly how they come to that sort of decision, and that's obviously they're going off piece a little bit, but I'm guessing that kind of leaves athletes, it's almost like pulling the rug from under them, really, where, because you need to be able to plan for like a 4 or 8 year cycle, really. So in terms of sort of yourselves and like, what are some of the things, and maybe give us an example of like how can an athlete sort of access, what the foundation has? How does it generally work, for an athlete? If they are in a position where, for example, they haven't got funding, what can they do to get, support?
Yeah, so in this year we supported over 2,250 athletes, and next year we're targeting over 2,500 across 70 areas of the UK where GLL, a charitable social enterprise, operates sports and leisure facilities. And all of the athletes on the scheme are performance athletes. They're exceptional in their specific sporting field, and every athlete is at least ranked top 8 or 10 in their age group, right up to fantastic Olympic, Paralympic ambassadors like Grace. And 66% of our athletes are under the age of 21. So it's the real youngsters that we're trying to target. And 88% of our athletes receive no other funding. So it's really important that we keep that number in mind, because we know that the funding is going to the right athletes that may not attract the National Lottery or the UK sport funding for the elite pathway. So our applications open today, and we close them on the 20th of February. So we give athletes plenty of time to apply into the scheme. Athletes can apply by visiting the website www.glsportfoundation.org, and on the website there's information about how to apply, the criteria, the athlete awards, stories and case studies and news stories of our fantastic athletes that are on the scheme. And Grace, as one of our ambassadors, is a fantastic athlete and inspiration to the up-and-coming athletes that want to aspire and to join the scheme.
Absolutely. I think it sort of sounds great, to be fair, and I'll definitely sort of spread this far and wide, and I think it's really important to, it's sort of the benefits, really. I think the sort of morale it gives the sort of country as well. There's a lot of benefits that they're hard to measure, really. I mean, would you agree with that sort of, Grace? You perform at the highest level type thing, and what's the feeling you get from the public in terms of what's your sort of vibe around, how it feels for the public to have, athletes like yourself at the highest level sort of doing well, and it is important to a lot of people. Would you agree with that, Grace? It gives people a bit of a boost, really.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. I feel like having the Olympic and Paralympic Games in the summer, people just got so behind British success, and also just behind seeing elite sport. Like, I've had so many young people and children come up to me saying that they watched swimming on TV or other sports and how much it made them want to participate in the sport as well. And I feel like watching sport on TV or live, it really just connects people together. It's something where you're rooting for a team, for a person, for an individual, and the joy that I get as an athlete compared to the joy that I get when I'm watching sport are so comparable as well. I feel like sport just gives you so much more than just the physical benefits as well. So that social connection amongst people is really, really important and needs to be celebrated too.
Absolutely. It's a great way to sort of, bring a country together, boost morale, even for that sort of moment where you're kind of watching. And I mean, not every athlete's going to get to your level, Grace, but even so, it's like, you see young people of all ages sort of get out there and sort of, might have a go at swimming. They might have a go at, getting on a bike or whatever they watch, really. They might not have the aspiration or the ability to go, to the very highest level, but they're out there competing, enjoying themselves, and you find your level, I guess. That's a big part of it too. So, not everyone's going to sort of be at the level you're at, but if you find your level. And what would you say to anyone sort of listening in, Grace? I mean, in terms of considering taking up a sport, and they might be a bit nervous to sort of go to the swimming pool, or maybe go to like a velodrome, or try to an athletic club. Any sort of, I know it's hard to give you any advice, but any sort of pearls of wisdom, anyone who might be a little bit nervous to sort of take something up, is there anything you sort of say to them to sort of get off the sort of couch and have a go?
Yeah, no, I would say there's so much joy in trying a sport, and there are so many different sports to go out there and have a go at, and you don't have to aspire to be the best, because your best is worth it, and your journey is incredible, and the joy that you'd get from trying something and meeting new people, and you can only get better, and there is so much success in failing, because you find the little things that you need to work on to get better and better. And for me, like, sport is not just about the physical exercise, it's about the people you meet, the skills you learn, learning how to work in a team. And there are countless number of sports, and the GLL Foundation supports so many athletes from so many different sporting backgrounds as well. And if you're a young athlete just starting on your journey, like, I really implore you to look at the foundation, because they're there to support you, to give you that nurturing step to hopefully reach the next milestone on your own individual sporting journey.
Absolutely. And just on the final note, Grace, maybe are you okay to share what's the next step for you in your sort of like career, and where do you sort of which direction?
Yeah. So I want to do another 4 years. I definitely want to go to the LA Games, but there's also Commonwealth Games in 2 years' time and a World Championships in September. So definitely looking ahead to stay in the sport that I love.
Fantastic. So we wish you all the best, and no doubt our listeners do as well. So thanks for your time, Grace and Tony, and I'll definitely sort of share the details out there, and hopefully anyone listening, get in touch with the foundation. There's nothing to lose. You get in touch and see where you go from there. That's the sort of key thing. Thanks again for your time, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you.